Today, Trump supporters began a protest that turned into a mob. They breached the Capitol building and shut down our U.S. government. This moment is not a huge shock to those who've been following Trump and his shenanigans and his corruption and his lies and his anti-American, racist, bigoted, and highly obnoxious behavior these past 5 years, or actually during his entire life, because this is who he is. I'm just saying. Today was the culmination of his efforts to knowingly and expressively incite violence and the instability in our government at the highest levels. I have never seen in my lifetime something so incredibly un-American. Now I'm talking about the ideals that we are supposed to be going towards. Technically, he is us. So un-American, disrespectful, and threatening to our democracy, if we can still call it democracy. But I can't say I'm shocked. I'm not shocked at all. And this is exactly what Trump and his supporters, his corrupt political supporters, want. The politicians who have fallen to extortion, Trump's extortion, I'll make you lose your office next time you're up for election. So they follow him, scared and blindly. Or the politicians who just love what he's doing because they're friggin' evil as he is. And of course, his gullible followers. This is what they wished for today. This was not an accident. Today was an embarrassment to the world, a threat to our nation's continuation as a democratic republic, and a gross example of law enforcement succumbing to the white privilege on steroids. It was disgusting. Like I said earlier, I was waiting for one of the police to actually put their hand out and to help somebody climb up our Capitol building. That was a pathetic show. Pathetic and obvious show of white privilege. The white folks out there knew the police weren't going to do a goddamn thing to stop them. That's disgusting, as they're breaking in and being terrorists, which is what they were. My assumption is that Trump's speech that he gave was an illegal display of, rhetoric that incited violence. And although I'm not an expert in this, at all, he incited a freaking mob. He knows exactly what he's doing. He is a con man and a horrible human. But Trump's not alone. He had Rudy Giuliani out there and half of Congress's support to basically have a coup. I call it a coup. I'm going to call it. All those lies, outright lies these people have supported, they're not morons. They know these are lies. They're supporting lies. It's disgusting. They're supporting hate. They're supporting horrific white supremacy to our Black brothers and sisters, to our brown brothers and sisters, to Indigenous people. And that is an affront to me. And yes, I'm a white person, but it's an affront to me because whenever one group is being abused, I am not the idiot that thinks that my group's not next. Okay, whatever group I might belong to, right? I'm in a privileged group right now. But I personally, I am ready and willing to give up some of that privilege for my fellow humans so they can have some form of equity in this country. The lies are eating me up alive. The lies. Liberty and justice for all. That's a bunch of bullshit. We never intended that. No. For us, but not you. I can't take this. It's horrific. I don't want to raise kids in this kind of thing. I don't want to be in this kind of culture. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way. It's a choice. These people have supported outright lies. They supported hate, corruption. They need to be out. Every last one of these congresspeople who supported these lies. Do not think for 1 minute that this is about the GOP versus Democrats. Oh no, we have been way beyond that. I'm not even a Democrat. I'm not a Biden fan. I'm a fan of my fellow humans. I'm a fan of my brothers and sisters who are being abused. Systemic racism is an ongoing crime against humanity. It's exactly what it is. We need Trump to get the hell out of our lives. The morality, stability, sanctity, and hope that somehow with this nation's constitution, we can somehow build a more perfect union. I don't know. It may be lost. I don't even know what to say. This perfect union that many of us are hoping for is never going to happen. With violent protests to the point where the Capitol building's breached, it's never going to happen. We're never going to build a more perfect union where when politicians are working inside, are compromised, and actually have to lock themselves inside with gas masks. That's not how you build a more perfect union. It'll never happen with a vice president having to be evacuated from our Capitol building because his life's in danger, because the people have turned against him, because the president incited it. It's not going to happen. We aren't going to build a more perfect union if we allow mobs of people to shut down our federal government. And all this baloney for a freaking lie about a fraudulent election driven by a sitting president, and to add more flame to the fire with an election that was the most secure and fair election in the history of our nation. Today, we witnessed the result of what happens when we vote for a corrupt, inhumane monster. When America puts in a corrupt, inhumane monster, everything he does is under the guise of his personal corruption, inhumanity, and monsterness. Okay, yeah, I made that one up, but you know what I mean. Today, the president's speech incited mob violence. And if this didn't cross the line for every single solitary person, then it is incredibly un-American. Anybody gives a single shit about our nation's integrity, longevity, and the safety of all of us. This was never about GOP and Democrats. I'm no historian or expert on government, but what I witnessed today in today's events, from what I've watched in the 5 to 6 years, I can't even count now, that Trump's been in action, I've never seen anything like it. It's the inequity in the treatment of my fellow citizens who are Black and brown in this country. It exemplified everything that is disgusting about this country. It was white supremacy on steroids. Those folks who breached the Capitol building and went inside, they weren't afraid at all. You know, you might wonder what I'm talking about, racism with this, but what this is, it's at the core of all of this. Let me explain. I'm going to ask you to imagine right now a giant crowd storming the Capitol building. Okay, just storming the Capitol building like they did today. Now imagine if they were all Black. What would have happened? My guess is it would have been a freaking bloodbath. And if you're being real, your guess is the same. This insurrection today showed us privilege beyond our wildest imagination. Do you see how peaceful, like 93 or 4% of every Black Lives Matter protest was? And a lot of the ones that weren't were incited by police themselves. And police went into these peaceful protests. There are thousands of incidences that I'm going to help document, actually, and a lot of other people are. My God, there was a picture today of a white dude sitting in Speaker Pelosi's office at her desk, apparently doing a photo op inside the Capitol building. He was kicking back at Pelosi's desk in the Capitol building. Short of him putting his freaking feet on her desk and opening up a can of beer, I can think of nothing more privileged than a white man kicking back in the Speaker of the House office after he's broken into the federal government and shut it down. If that were a Black person, I promise you, that person would not be alive today. This is absolute insanity. Racism has divided our nation, and it's worked as a great distractor, and it has led to our demise. And you can't tell me that this wasn't totally exemplary of what America is. We are racist as fuck. In America, we have a problem. It's called a white person problem. And until we face that, We're never going to get through this. We have a white person problem in America. Those Trump supporters knew that they were not going to be in trouble. They weren't even scared. They broke into our federal government and shut it down like crazy mobsters. Some of them had guns, but they knew they wouldn't get in trouble. Speech over. God, I rant a lot.